The rain hammered the roof of the transport van as Officer Marcus Webb glanced at his passenger through the metal grate. The woman sat perfectly still, her dark eyes fixed on the water streaming down the window. Her hands, cuffed in front of her, rested on her lap with an unusual grace that made Webb uncomfortable. In 20 years of corrections work, he'd learned to read inmates. But Shanice Coleman was different. She hadn't spoken since they left Huntsville 2 hours ago. The medical transfer papers on Webb's clipboard told him why. Stage 4. Months, maybe weeks left. The state was moving her to a facility with better hospice care, though Webb wondered what difference it made. Prison was prison, even when you were dying. You ever really listened to rain, officer? Shanice's voice cut through the storm's noise, startling him. Webb adjusted his rear-view mirror. What do you mean? Not just hear it, listen to it. She pressed her palm against the glass. The rhythm, the way each drop has its own voice. Her voice cracked slightly. I haven't heard it properly in 16 years. Webb knew the statistics. Climate-controlled facilities, concrete and steel. Nature became a memory for most inmates. But something in Shanice's tone made him lean forward. Why does it matter? He asked. She turned from the window, and Webb saw something in her expression that made his chest tighten. Not anger, not resignation, something deeper. Because the last time I really heard the rain, I was with my daughter. She was 9 years old, dancing in our backyard, laughing like the world was made of magic. Webb's hand tightened on the steering wheel. The file mentioned a daughter. He hadn't read the details. He never did. It made the job harder. Where is she now? That's what I need to fix, Officer Webb. Shanice's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Before I can't anymore. Oh. The van hit a pothole, jolting them both. Webb's instincts screamed protocol. Maintain distance, don't engage. But Shanice wasn't manipulating. He'd seen enough cons to know the difference. This was something else. This was desperation, wrapped in dignity. What are you asking me? Webb heard himself say. Shanice took a breath that seemed to cost her everything. I need to stand in the rain one more time, feel it on my skin, hear it without barriers. She paused, her eyes glistening. And I need your help to reach my daughter before it's too late, because she thinks I abandoned her. And the truth, her voice broke, the truth is buried with lies I can finally tell. Webb felt his pulse quicken. Every regulation said refuse. Every instinct said this was trouble, but he was also a father, and he understood the mathematics of parental love. What truth? He asked quietly. Shanice looked back at the rain, and when she spoke again, her words changed everything. I didn't commit the crime they sent me here for. My sister did, and now she's about to let my daughter take the fall for something else. History repeating itself, Officer Webb, and I'm the only one who can stop it. The rain pounded harder, and Webb realized he'd just crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Webb pulled into a rest stop 30 miles outside Austin, his mind racing. He radioed dispatch with a standard bathroom break request, nothing suspicious. But as he helped Shanice out of the van, he knew this was anything but standard. Inside the fluorescent-lit restroom, Shanice stood at the sink, staring at her reflection. Webb waited by the door, one hand on his belt, watching her process whatever thoughts were running through her mind. 16 years, she said to her reflection. You'd think a person would forget what freedom feels like. Webb checked his watch. They were behind schedule. The Austin facility expected them in 40 minutes. But something kept him rooted in place. Tell me about your daughter, he said. Shanice's eyes met his in the mirror. Her name is Kennedy. She's 25 now, social worker in Dallas, helping kids whose parents are locked up. She laughed bitterly. The irony isn't lost on me. She's trying to save kids from mothers like she thinks I am. Webb pulled out his phone and searched the name. Kennedy Coleman appeared immediately. Young woman, bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, working at a community center. Her bio mentioned advocacy for children of incarcerated parents. She became a social worker, Webb said softly. I know. I've followed every article, every mention. Shanice turned from the mirror. She's trying to fix what she thinks I broke. But I didn't break it, Officer Webb. My sister did. And now my sister is about to break Kennedy too. Webb's radio crackled. Dispatch checking in. He bought them 5 more minutes. What happened 16 years ago? Shanice's hands gripped the sink edge. My sister Denise was 24. Full scholarship to law school, everything ahead of her. One night, one terrible choice, and suddenly she's looking at 20 years minimum. Her voice hardened. I was 32, single mother, working 2 jobs. I had a record from my youth, nothing serious but enough. I thought... She stopped, swallowing hard. I thought Kennedy would be better off with Denise raising her than in foster care while I was locked up. So you confessed to something you didn't do. I thought I was saving my sister's future, giving Kennedy a stable home. Shanice's voice cracked. Instead, I destroyed my daughter's childhood and wasted 16 years I can never get back. Webb felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down. Why tell me now? Shanice pulled a letter from her pocket, something Webb hadn't noticed during the security check. This arrived last week. From Denise. She's in trouble again. Same kind of trouble. And this time, Kennedy is involved. Her eyes burned with intensity. My sister is going to let Kennedy take the blame. Just like I took the blame for her. And I can't let that happen. The rain hammered the roof, urgent and insistent. Webb stared at the letter, then at Shanice, seeing not an inmate, but a mother running out of time. What exactly do you need from me? He asked, though he already knew the answer would change everything. Die Z. Before we discover what Shanice Coleman's last wish truly meant, and how Officer Webb's decision would change multiple lives forever, we'd love to know where our listeners are from around the world. Drop a comment telling us your location, and if this story moves you, leave a like to help us share more stories of redemption and humanity. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful stories to light. Now back to Shanice's story and the impossible choice facing Officer Webb. Webb sat in the driver's seat, engine off, staring at Denise Coleman's letter. The words blurred together, but the message was clear. Denise was in trouble. Kennedy was involved. And Shanice was running out of time to stop history from repeating itself. Your sister became a lawyer? Webb asked, not turning around. Corporate attorney in Dallas, successful, respected, everything I helped her become. Shanice's voice held no bitterness, only exhaustion. She used the second chance I gave her to build a life. Meanwhile, I've been in here watching my daughter grow up through photos Denise sends twice a year. Webb searched for Denise Coleman on his phone. What he found made his stomach turn. High-powered attorney, partner at a prestigious firm, married with a son. The kind of woman whose life Webb had unknowingly protected 16 years ago. She built her career on your sacrifice, Webb said quietly. She built her career on my lie, Shanice corrected. And now she's about to teach Kennedy that's how you survive, by letting someone else pay for your mistakes. Webb's phone buzzed. His supervisor. Where are you? Facility says you haven't checked in. He stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Every rational instinct screamed to respond, to drive to the facility, to forget this conversation. But he couldn't. If I help you, Webb said slowly, we do this my way. No deviations, no surprises. You follow my lead. Shanice leaned forward as far as her restraints allowed. Does that mean... It means I'm making a phone call, Webb interrupted. And depending on how it goes, we're either checking into that facility or we're taking a detour that could cost me everything. He met her eyes in the mirror. But I need you to promise me something first. Anything. Promise me that when we find Kennedy, when you tell her the truth, you'll give her the choice to walk away if she needs to. Webb's voice roughened. Promise me you won't expect forgiveness. Shanice's eyes glistened. I promise. Webb nodded and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Marcus Webb. I thought you'd forgotten about me. Hey, Sarah, Webb said, watching Shanice in the mirror. I need a favor. How would you like to break the story of a woman who spent 16 years in prison for a crime she didn't commit? Sarah Chen, investigative journalist for the Dallas Morning News, went silent. Then, "I'm listening." As Webb explained, he watched Shanice's shoulders shake with silent sobs. He'd crossed the line. Now he just had to hope it led somewhere worth the journey. But first, they needed to hear the rain. Sarah Chen arrived 40 minutes later, driving a silver Honda that had seen better days. Webb had moved the van to a secluded area, away from cameras and witnesses. He'd also called a friend in medical transport, buying them time with a story about mechanical issues. Shanice watched through the window as Sarah approached, press credentials around her neck, recording device already in hand. Webb had worked with Sarah before, on a case that needed exposing. She'd protected his identity then. He was betting everything she'd do it again. "Officer Webb," Sarah said as he stepped out, "when you said you had a story, I didn't expect this." She glanced at the transport van. "You know this could end your career?" "I know." Webb opened the van's door, revealing Shanice in her restraints. "But some stories are worth the risk." Sarah studied Shanice for a long moment, journalist instincts clearly warring with ethics. "You're Shanice Coleman, convicted 16 years ago for—" She stopped, glancing at Webb. "For something you're claiming you didn't do." "That's right," Shanice said quietly. "And I can prove it. But I need your help to make sure the proof matters before my sister buries it." "Proof?" Sarah's eyes sharpened. "What kind of proof?" Shanice looked at Webb, who nodded. "There's a storage unit in Houston, Unit 189 at the facility on Richmond. It's been paid for by my sister for 16 years. Inside, there's a box with evidence that proves I wasn't at the scene. Evidence that proves Denise was." Sarah pulled out her notebook, scribbling rapidly. "Why didn't you use this evidence during your trial?" "Because I didn't know it existed until last week," Shanice said. "Denise mentioned it in her letter. She kept it as insurance, in case I ever changed my mind about protecting her." Her voice hardened. "She thought it would keep me quiet. Instead, it's going to set me free." Webb watched Sarah process this, saw the moment's skepticism shifted to genuine interest. "And you want me to retrieve this evidence?" "I want you to witness it being retrieved," Shanice corrected. "Document everything so there's no question about tampering. Then help me reach Kennedy before Denise realizes what's happening." Sarah looked at Webb. "This is insane." "Yeah," Webb agreed. "But it's also the right thing to do." The rain had started again, drumming against the van's roof. Shanice turned her face toward the sound, closing her eyes, and Webb saw something shift in her expression. Not peace, but determination. "Officer Webb," Shanice said softly, "before we go further, I need to ask you to fulfill the first part of my wish." Webb frowned. "What do you mean?" Shanice opened her eyes. "I need to stand in the rain, just for a moment. I need to feel it, hear it, remember what freedom felt like." She paused. "Because once we start this, there's no going back. And I need this memory before everything changes." Sarah looked at Webb, expression unreadable. "You're actually considering this?" Webb didn't answer. Instead, he unlocked Shanice's restraints, keeping the cuffs on but removing the chain. Shanice stood slowly, legs stiff from hours of sitting, and stepped out into the rain. For a moment, nothing happened. Shanice just stood there, face tilted toward the sky, letting the rain soak through her prison uniform. Webb kept one hand near his weapon, ready, but Shanice didn't run. She just stood there, breathing deeply, tears mixing with rainwater. "Kennedy used to do this," Shanice said, voice barely audible over the storm. "She'd dance in the rain, spinning in circles, laughing." She opened her eyes. "I used to watch from the porch, thinking I had all the time in the world, thinking there would always be another rain, another chance. But there wasn't," Webb said quietly. "No." Shanice closed her eyes again. "There wasn't." Akko. Sarah had her phone out recording. Webb should have stopped her, should have maintained protocol. But something about this moment felt sacred. A woman reclaiming humanity after 16 years of concrete and steel. "Denise called me the night it happened," Shanice said, still standing in the rain. She was panicking, saying she'd made a terrible mistake, that her life was over. I drove to meet her, and when I got there, she was standing in the rain just like this, soaking wet, shaking, terrified. So you took the blame, Sarah said softly. So I destroyed my life for hers, Shanice corrected, and I told myself it was noble, that I was being a good sister. But the truth is, I was being a coward, because the brave thing would have been making her face consequences, teaching her that actions matter. Webb felt something shift in his chest. You're not a coward, Shanice. You made a choice. A wrong choice. Shanice opened her eyes. And now Denise is about to make the same wrong choice with Kennedy. And I'm the only one who can stop her, because I'm the only one who knows how that choice destroys everyone it touches. The rain continued falling, and Webb realized this moment, this confession in a rest stop parking lot, was the real beginning of Shanice's redemption. Not the evidence, not the exoneration, but this acknowledgement of her mistake. Okay, Webb said finally. Let's get that evidence, let's find Kennedy, and let's make sure she doesn't pay for her aunt's mistakes. Shanice nodded, stepping back toward the van. But before Webb could secure her, Sarah spoke up. Wait, she said. Before we do this, I need to know something. She looked at Shanice. Why now? What changed? Shanice was silent for a moment. Then she pulled something from her pocket. A photograph, worn and faded, protected in plastic. This, Shanice said, holding it up, this arrived with Denise's letter. Webb took the photo, and his breath caught. It showed a young woman, maybe 25, standing in the rain with arms spread wide, laughing at the camera. She looked exactly like Shanice. Kennedy, he said. She still dances in the rain, Shanice whispered, just like she did when she was 9. And when I saw this picture, when I realized Denise sent it as a reminder of what I'd lose if I spoke up, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. Her voice broke. I couldn't let my daughter keep living a lie, even if it meant losing everything I've tried to protect for 16 years. Sarah lowered her phone, tears in her eyes. That's the story. Not just wrongful conviction, but a mother who learned from her mistakes and is trying to save her daughter from making them. Webb secured Shanice back in the van, but this time left the window open so rain sounds could reach her. As they pulled onto the highway toward Houston, Webb's radio crackled with increasingly urgent messages. He ignored them all. Some rules were meant to be broken, some lines were meant to be crossed, and some stories were worth risking everything to tell. If stories of redemption and humanity touch your heart, if you want to know whether Shanice reaches her daughter in time and whether Officer Webb's risk pays off, please like this video and subscribe. It helps us continue sharing these powerful stories of transformation and hope. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is tell the truth, no matter the cost. The storage facility on Richmond looked like 1,000 others across Houston, rows of identical orange doors, security cameras that may or may not work, and a board attendant who barely looked up when they arrived. Webb had changed into civilian clothes. Shanice wore a jacket over her prison uniform, hood up, looking like any other customer. Sarah had gone ahead, using press credentials to sweet-talk the manager into access. Within 20 minutes, she returned with a key and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Unit 189, she said, handing Webb the key. "Paid through the year by Shanice Coleman, attorney at law. Manager remembers her. Says she comes once a year, always alone, stays less than 5 minutes." Webb looked at Shanice, who stood perfectly still, staring at the rows of storage units like they held the universe's secrets. Maybe they did. "You ready?" Webb asked. Shanice nodded, but her hands shook. "I've been ready for 16 years. They walked through the facility in silence, footsteps echoing off concrete. The rain had followed them, turning pathways into shallow rivers, reflecting fluorescent lights. Webb kept his hand near his concealed weapon, hyper-aware of every camera, every witness. Unit 189 was in the back corner, away from the main entrance. Webb unlocked the door and rolled it up, revealing a space no bigger than a closet. Inside, stacked against the walls, were boxes labeled with dates. 16 years worth of boxes. Jesus, Sarah whispered, camera recording. She's been documenting this the whole time. Shanice stepped inside, eyes scanning labels until she found what she needed. A box marked with the current year, sitting on top. She lifted it carefully, like it might explode, and carried it out into the light. Webb helped her set it down on concrete. The box wasn't sealed, just folded closed. Shanice's hands hovered over it, trembling. "Whatever's in here," Shanice said quietly, "it's going to hurt people I love. My sister, her family, maybe even Kennedy, when she realizes how long I've kept this secret. But it's also going to free you," Sarah said gently. Shanice nodded, then opened the box. Inside, carefully organized in plastic sleeves, was evidence that made Webb's blood run cold. Photographs, documents, a cell phone in a sealed bag, and a letter, handwritten, addressed to Shanice Coleman. Sarah leaned in, camera capturing everything. "What is all this?" Shanice pulled out the letter first, hands shaking so badly Webb had to help unfold it. The handwriting was neat, precise. "It's from Denise," Shanice said, voice hollow. "Written the day after I was convicted. She says she's sorry, that she never meant for it to go this far, that she kept this evidence as insurance in case I ever changed my mind." Webb took the letter, reading quickly. Denise Coleman had known, had watched her sister go to prison, had built a successful career on that lie, and had kept evidence of her own guilt as leverage. "This is blackmail," Webb said flatly. "No," Shanice said quietly. "It's protection. There's a difference." Sarah pulled out the cell phone, examining it through plastic. "Is this from that night?" Shanice nodded. "Denise's phone. She was supposed to destroy it, but kept it instead. There are text messages, photos, GPS data, everything proving she was at the scene and I wasn't." Webb felt his jaw clench. "And you've known about this for a week?" "I suspected for a week," Shanice corrected. "I didn't know for sure until right now." She pulled out a photograph and her face crumpled. It showed Denise Coleman, 16 years younger, standing next to a car. But that wasn't what made Webb's blood run cold. It was the second person in the photo, a young girl, maybe 9, looking scared. "Who is that?" Sarah asked. "That's Kennedy," Shanice whispered. "My daughter. She was there that night. She saw everything." Her voice broke. "And Denise has been keeping her silent for 16 years, just like she kept me silent." The implications hit Webb like a freight train. This wasn't just wrongful conviction. This was a woman who'd manipulated her entire family, who'd used her sister's love and her niece's fear to build a life on lies. "We need to find Kennedy," Webb said urgently. "Now. Because if Denise realizes we have this evidence, she'll run," Shanice finished. "Niece. Or worse, she'll convince Kennedy to take the blame for whatever she's done now, just like she convinced me back then." Sarah was already on her phone, typing rapidly. "I'm sending this to my editor. We need to get this story out before Denise can bury it." But Shanice grabbed her arm. "Wait, please. Before you publish anything, I need to talk to Kennedy. I need to tell her the truth myself, face to face. She deserves to hear it from me." Sarah looked at Webb, who nodded. "She's right. We do this the right way." "Fine," Sarah agreed, "but we move fast, because once Denise realizes her insurance policy is gone, all bets are off." Webb helped Shanice pack the evidence back into the box, mind racing through logistics. They needed to get to Dallas, find Kennedy, do all this before dispatch realized he'd gone completely rogue. It was impossible. It was insane. It was also the only chance they had. As they loaded the box into Sarah's car, Shanice stopped, looking back at the storage unit. 16 years, she said softly. 16 years of my life, locked away in boxes and lies. She turned to Webb. "No more. Whatever happens next, no more lies." Webb nodded, feeling the weight of that promise. No more lies. They drove out of the facility into the rain, 3 people bound together by a truth about to shatter everything. And as Webb watched Houston disappear in the rearview mirror, he wondered if redemption was always this complicated, this painful, this necessary. Behind them, in Unit 189, 15 other boxes sat waiting, 15 years of secrets that might never be opened, but the one that mattered was now in their possession. The question was whether they could use it before it was too late. Dallas appeared on the horizon as the sun began to set, the rain easing into a light mist. Webb had been driving for 3 hours straight, ignoring increasingly frantic messages from dispatch, from his supervisor, from everyone who wanted to know where he was and why Shanice Coleman hadn't been delivered to the Austin facility. His career was over. He knew that, but somehow it didn't matter as much as it should have. In the passenger seat, Shanice sat with the box on her lap, staring at Kennedy's address on Sarah's phone. She lived in a modest apartment complex in East Dallas, not far from the community center where she worked. Sarah had called ahead, confirming Kennedy was home, that she'd be willing to talk. She hadn't mentioned what about. Some conversations required face-to-face honesty. "What if she doesn't believe me?" Shanice asked suddenly, her voice small. "What if she thinks this is just another lie?" Webb glanced at her, seeing not a prisoner, but a mother, terrified of her daughter's rejection. "Then you tell her anyway. You give her the truth and let her decide what to do with it." Sarah, following in her Honda, had already contacted her editor, preparing a story that would run the moment they gave the word. But she'd agreed to wait, to give Shanice this chance first. It was more grace than most journalists would offer. They pulled into the apartment complex just as streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Webb could see lights in Kennedy's second-floor apartment, could imagine her inside, unaware that her entire understanding of her life was about to change. "I can't go up there in this," Shanice said, gesturing to her prison uniform. "She'll take one look and—" "I brought something," Webb interrupted, pulling a duffel bag from behind the seat. Inside were civilian clothes, roughly Shanice's size, borrowed from his wife's closet. "You're still in my custody, so restraints stay on under the jacket, but at least you'll look human." Shanice's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you doing this? Why risk everything for someone you don't know?" Webb was quiet for a moment, thinking about his daughter Emma, about how easily it could all be taken away. "Because someone should have done it for you 16 years ago. Because the system failed you, and I'm part of that system." He paused. "And because I have a daughter too, and I can't imagine her growing up thinking I abandoned her." They changed Shanice's clothes in the van, Webb keeping watch for curious neighbors. Sarah joined them, camera ready but respectfully lowered. This moment wasn't for public consumption. Not yet. "Ready?" Webb asked as they approached the stairs. Shanice took a deep breath, clutching the box like a lifeline. "No, but I'm going anyway." They climbed the stairs in silence, each step feeling like a mile. Webb's hand rested on his concealed weapon, not because he expected trouble, but because 20 years of training demanded it. Sarah hung back, giving them space, but staying close enough to intervene if needed. Webb knocked on apartment 2B, and for a moment nothing happened. Then footsteps. A pause. The sound of a chain being removed. The door opened, and Kennedy Coleman stood there looking so much like her mother that Webb's breath caught. She had Shanice's eyes, her strong jawline, her way of standing like she was ready for whatever the world threw at her, but there was a wariness in her expression, a guardedness that came from years of disappointment. "Can I help you?" she asked, her gaze moving from Webb to Shanice, not yet recognizing the woman in civilian clothes. Shanice removed her hood, and Kennedy's face went pale. "Hello, baby girl," Shanice said, her voice breaking. "I know I'm the last person you want to see. I know I have no right to be here, but I need to tell you something I should have told you 16 years ago." Kennedy's hand gripped the doorframe, knuckles white. "Mom," the word came out strangled, disbelieving. "What are you? How are you?" "I'm still in custody," Shanice said quickly, gesturing to Webb. "Officer Webb is helping me, because I need to tell you the truth before it's too late. Kennedy looked at Webb, her social worker instincts clearly warring with personal emotions. Is this legal? No, Webb admitted. But it's right, and sometimes those aren't the same thing. For a long moment, Kennedy just stood there, eyes moving between her mother and the box she carried. Then, slowly, she stepped back, opening the door wider. "You have 10 minutes, she said, her voice hard. "Then I'm calling the police." "That's all I need," Shanice said, stepping inside. 10 minutes to tell you the truth, and then you can decide what to do with it." Webb and Sarah followed them in, closing the door behind them. The apartment was small but warm, filled with photos of kids Kennedy worked with, certificates of appreciation from the community center, evidence of a life built on helping others. Shanice looked around, taking it all in, and Webb saw pride and regret warring on her face. "You've done well," Shanice said softly, "better than I ever could have." "Don't," Kennedy said sharply. "Don't you dare try to make this about pride or redemption. You left me. You chose whatever you did over being my mother. So don't stand here and pretend you have any right to be proud of me." Shanice flinched but didn't argue. Instead, she set the box on Kennedy's coffee table and opened it, pulling out the evidence piece by piece. "You're right," she said. "I don't have the right. But I need you to understand why I left. Not to excuse it, not to make you forgive me, but because if you don't know the truth, you're going to watch your aunt make the same mistake I did. And I can't let that happen." Kennedy's eyes widened. "Aunt Denise, what does she have to do with this?" And so Shanice told her everything. The night 16 years ago when Denise called, panicking. The decision to take the blame. The years of silence. The letter that arrived last week revealing Denise was in trouble again, that Kennedy was involved, that history was repeating itself. As she spoke, Webb watched Kennedy's face cycle through emotions, disbelief, anger, confusion, and finally a dawning horror as she realized what her mother was saying. "Aunt Denise let you go to prison for something she did," Kennedy whispered. "And she's been free this whole time, building her career, raising her family, while I rotted in a cell, yeah," Shanice finished. "But I made that choice, Kennedy. I'm not innocent in this. I chose to lie, I chose to sacrifice myself, and I told myself it was noble that I was protecting my sister. But the truth is, I was taking the easy way out." She pulled out the photograph of young Kennedy, handing it to her daughter. "But now, Denise is about to do it again. And this time, you're the one who'll pay the price." Kennedy stared at the photo, tears streaming down her face. "I was there that night. I saw everything." "You were 9, Shanice said. "Same age you are in my favorite memory of you, dancing in the rain, laughing like the world was made of music." She reached out, then stopped, hand hovering between them. "I've missed so much of your life, baby girl, and I can never get that back. But maybe, if we stop Denise now, maybe some good can come from all this pain." "Date." Kennedy sank onto her couch, the photograph still clutched in her hand. For a long moment she just sat there, processing. Then she looked up at her mother, and Webb saw something shift in her expression. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of healing. "Where's Aunt Denise now?" Kennedy asked. Shanice pulled out Denise's letter, handing it to her. "According to this, she's planning something for tomorrow, something involving you, and a situation that's spiraling out of control. She asked me to keep quiet, to not make waves, just like she did 16 years ago." Kennedy read the letter, her jaw clenching. "What situation? I haven't talked to Aunt Denise in months." Shanice's face went pale. "You haven't, but the letter said I was involved," Kennedy interrupted, her social worker training clearly kicking in. "But it didn't say I knew about it." She stood abruptly, pacing. "What if Denise is planning to use me without my knowledge? What if she's setting me up to take the fall for something I didn't even do?" Webb felt his stomach drop. "That's exactly what she's doing. She's repeating the pattern, but this time she's not even asking permission." Sarah stepped forward, camera still lowered. Kennedy, I'm a journalist. I'm going to tell this story, with or without your cooperation. But your mother wanted you to hear it from her first. Kennedy looked at her mother, and Webb saw tears forming in her eyes. You came here risking everything to warn me, even though I've spent 16 years hating you? I came here because you're my daughter, Shanice said simply, and because I couldn't let you suffer for my mistakes, or Denise's mistakes, not anymore. Kennedy crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her mother into a fierce hug. Shanice's restraints clinked as she wrapped her arms around her daughter, and both women sobbed openly. I don't forgive you, Kennedy whispered into her mother's shoulder. Not yet, maybe not ever, but I understand now, and I'm so sorry I didn't know. I'm so sorry you've been alone all this time. You have nothing to be sorry for, Shanice said, pulling back to look at her daughter's face. Nothing. This is on me and Denise, but we can fix it together. We can make sure she doesn't hurt anyone else. Kennedy wiped her eyes, her social worker composure returning. Okay, what do we do? Webb pulled out his phone, showing Kennedy the evidence photos. We need to figure out what Denise is planning. The letter mentions a situation spiraling out of control. Any idea what that could be? Kennedy studied the photos, her brow furrowed. Then her eyes widened. Oh my God, the Henderson case. What's the Henderson case? Sarah asked, already recording. It's a corporate fraud case Denise has been working on for the past year, Kennedy explained. Huge scandal, millions of dollars, multiple defendants. I only know about it because Denise mentioned it at Christmas, said it was the biggest case of her career. She looked at Webb. What if she's involved? What if she's not just defending the fraud, but part of it? Shanice pulled out another document from the box, one Webb hadn't noticed before. This is a bank statement from an offshore account in Denise's name. Webb took the statement, his blood running cold. Deposits dating back 5 years, totaling over $2 million. All from shell corporations connected to the Henderson case. She's not just defending them, Webb said quietly. She's been helping them hide the money. And now that the case is falling apart, she needs a scapegoat. Me, Kennedy whispered. She's going to make it look like I was involved, like I helped her. She looked at her mother. How? I don't even work in law. I'm a social worker. Shanice pulled out the final piece of evidence from the box. A forged document, bearing Kennedy's signature, authorizing transfers from a non-profit account to one of the shell corporations. She's been planning this for months, Shanice said, her voice shaking with rage. She forged your signature, made it look like you were funneling non-profit funds to her clients, and when the investigation closes in, you'll be the one they arrest. Kennedy stared at the forged document, her face cycling through shock, betrayal, and finally, cold fury. She was going to let me go to prison, just like she let you go to prison. Not just let you, Webb corrected. She was going to make sure you went to prison, because that's what she does. She sacrifices the people who love her to save herself. Sarah was typing furiously on her phone. My editor is standing by. The moment we give the word, this story goes live, but we need to move fast. If Denise realizes we have this evidence... Kennedy's phone rang, the screen showing Aunt Denise. Everyone froze. Answer it, Shanice said. Act normal. Find out what she's planning. Kennedy took a deep breath and answered. Hey, Aunt Denise. What's up? Webb couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he watched Kennedy's face go from controlled calm to barely contained rage. Tomorrow morning, Kennedy said, her voice steady despite the fury in her eyes. Yeah, I can meet you at your office, 9 o'clock, no problem. She paused, listening. No, I haven't talked to anyone. Why would I? Another pause. Okay, see you tomorrow. She hung up and looked at the group. She wants me to sign some papers tomorrow morning. It's for a charity event the firm is sponsoring. Needs my signature as a community representative. Kennedy's hands shook. She's going to have me sign the real documents, make it official. And then she's going to turn me in herself, play the shocked aunt who discovered her niece's fraud. Shanice stood, her restraints clinking. Then we stop her. Tonight. We go to the police with this evidence. We expose her before she can frame you. No, Kennedy said, her social worker training clearly taking over. If we go to the police now, Denise will claim the evidence is fabricated. She'll say Mom is lying to get revenge. We need to catch her in the act. Webb felt his pulse quicken. You want to wear a wire, get her confession on tape? Exactly, Kennedy said. I go to her office tomorrow morning, act like I'm going to sign the papers, and get her to admit what she's doing. Once we have her confession, the physical evidence becomes undeniable. Sarah nodded. I can set it up. I have contacts in law enforcement who can provide the equipment and be standing by to make the arrest. Shanice grabbed Kennedy's hand. Baby, this is dangerous. If Denise realizes what you're doing, then I'll be in the same position you were in 16 years ago, Kennedy interrupted. Except this time I'll have the truth on my side, and I'll have you. She squeezed her mother's hand. We do this together. We end this cycle. No more lies. No more sacrifices. Webb looked at Shanice, saw the fear and pride warring in her expression. It's her choice, he said softly, just like it was yours 16 years ago, except this time she's choosing truth instead of lies. Shanice nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Okay, we do this together. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Sarah made calls, arranging for recording equipment and police backup. Webb contacted a lawyer friend who specialized in wrongful convictions, getting advice on how to present the evidence. Kennedy practiced what she'd say, how she'd react, how she'd get Denise to confess without raising suspicion. And Shanice sat on the couch, watching her daughter prepare to face the woman who'd stolen 16 years of their lives together, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. You know this might not work, Webb said quietly, sitting beside Shanice while Kennedy and Sarah worked in the kitchen. Denise is a lawyer. She's smart. She might not confess. I know, Shanice said. But at least we're trying. At least Kennedy knows the truth now, even if Denise gets away with it, even if I have to go back to prison. At least my daughter knows I didn't abandon her. Webb nodded, understanding. Sometimes redemption wasn't about the outcome. It was about the attempt, about choosing to do the right thing, even when the odds were against you. His phone buzzed. His supervisor. Final warning. Report your location immediately or face termination and criminal charges. Webb turned off his phone. You're going to lose everything, Shanice said, watching him. Maybe, Webb agreed. But I'm going to gain something too. The knowledge that I did the right thing, that I helped a mother save her daughter, that I stood up to a system that failed you. He smiled. That's worth more than a pension. Shanice reached out, her restrained hands awkward, and squeezed his arm. Thank you, Officer Webb, for giving me this chance, for believing me when no one else would. Call me Marcus, Webb said, and you don't have to thank me. This is what I should have been doing all along. Kennedy returned from the kitchen, Sarah behind her with a small recording device. Okay, we're set. The wire is voice-activated, broadcasts to a secure server, and Sarah's editor will have a team standing by to publish the moment we give the word. And the police? Shanice asked. Detective Rodriguez from the fraud division will be in the building, Sarah said. Plain clothes, acting like a client. The moment Kennedy gives the signal, he moves in. Webb stood, his corrections officer training kicking in. What's the signal? I'll say, I need to call my mother, Kennedy said. That's when Rodriguez comes in. Shanice's eyes filled with tears again. Your mother, you're going to call for me. I'm going to call for you, Kennedy confirmed. Because for the first time in 16 years, I actually have a mother to call for. They held each other again, and Webb had to look away, the emotion too raw, too private. He checked his watch. 3 a.m. In 6 hours, Kennedy would walk into Shanice Coleman's office and either expose a corrupt lawyer or become her next victim. You should get some rest, Webb said. All of you. It's going to be a long day. But none of them moved. They just sat there in Kennedy's small apartment, bound together by truth and hope, and the desperate belief that sometimes justice could prevail. Outside, the rain had started again, and Shanice stood, walking to the window, pressing her palm against the glass. "Kennedy used to dance in the rain," she said softly, "when she was little. Before everything fell apart." Kennedy joined her mother at the window. "I still do," she said. "I never stopped. Because even when I thought you'd abandoned me, even when I hated you, I remembered those moments. Dancing in the rain with my mom, being happy." Shanice turned to her daughter, and Webb saw something pass between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but connection, understanding. Love that had survived 16 years of lies and separation. "When this is over," Shanice said, "when Denise is exposed and the truth comes out, will you dance in the rain with me? One more time?" Kennedy smiled through her tears. "One more time. And then maybe 1,000 more times after that." Morning came too quickly. Webb had dozed in a chair, his body protesting 20 hours without real sleep. Shanice had stayed awake all night, watching her daughter sleep on the couch, as if afraid Kennedy might disappear if she closed her eyes. Sarah arrived at 7 with coffee and breakfast tacos, her editor on speed dial. "Rodriguez is in position," she said. "Building security has been briefed. We're ready." Kennedy emerged from the bathroom, dressed professionally, the wire hidden under her blouse. She looked calm, composed, every inch the social worker who'd built a career helping others. But Webb saw the fear in her eyes. "You don't have to do this," Shanice said for the 10th time. "We can find another way." "There is no other way," Kennedy said. "Denise has been getting away with this for 16 years. It ends today." They drove to Denise's office building in downtown Dallas, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that screamed success. Webb stayed in the van with Shanice, monitoring the wire feed on Sarah's laptop. Sarah positioned herself in the lobby, camera hidden, ready to document everything. At exactly 9 o'clock, Kennedy walked through the revolving doors and disappeared into the elevator. Webb watched Shanice's face as they listened to Kennedy's footsteps, the elevator ding, the sound of a door opening. "Kennedy, right on time." Shanice Coleman's voice came through crystal clear, warm and welcoming, and completely false. Come in, come in. Can I get you coffee?" "No thanks, Aunt Denise. I'm good." "Great! So these papers are just a formality. The firm is sponsoring a charity gala next month, and we need community representatives to sign off on the fund allocation. Your signature as a social worker adds credibility." Webb heard papers rustling, Kennedy's breathing steady and controlled. "This is a lot of money," Kennedy said. $2 million? "It's a big gala," Denise said smoothly. "Don't worry, it's all legitimate. Just sign here, here, and here." Silence. Webb could imagine Kennedy pretending to read the documents, buying time. "Aunt Denise," Kennedy said slowly, "these aren't charity documents. These are transfer authorizations to offshore accounts." The temperature in the van seemed to drop. Shanice gripped Webb's arm, her nails digging in. "What? No, you must be reading them wrong." Denise's voice had changed, losing its warmth. "Just sign them, Kennedy. It's fine." "It's not fine," Kennedy said, her voice stronger now. "These accounts are connected to the Henderson case, the fraud case you're defending. You're asking me to authorize transfers of embezzled money." A long pause. Then Denise laughed, but it sounded forced. "Kennedy, honey, you're confused. You don't understand corporate law. Just trust me and sign. Like my mother trusted you 16 years ago?" The silence that followed was deafening. Webb held his breath, watching Shanice's face go pale. "What did you say?" Denise's voice was ice. "My mother," Kennedy repeated. "Shanice Coleman. The sister who went to prison for a crime you committed. The sister who sacrificed 16 years of her life so you could have this career, this office, this life built on lies." "Kennedy, I don't know what you think you know," Denise started, but Kennedy cut her off. "I know everything, Aunt Denise. I know you were the one who committed the crime 16 years ago. I know Mom took the blame to protect you. I know you kept evidence of your guilt as insurance to keep her quiet. And I know you're trying to do the same thing to me now." Webb heard movement, the sound of a door closing. Denise's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "Who told you this? Your mother? She's a convicted criminal, Kennedy. No one will believe her." "I will," Kennedy said. "And so will everyone else when they see the evidence. The photos, the documents, the offshore accounts, the forged signatures. All of it. You have nothing," Denise hissed. "I made sure of that." "You made sure you kept everything," Kennedy corrected. "In a storage unit on Richmond, Unit 189. 16 years' worth of evidence, all carefully documented. Insurance, you called it. Blackmail is what it actually is." Another pause, then Denise's voice, cold and calculating. "If you had that evidence, you'd have gone to the police already. You're bluffing." "Am I?" Kennedy's voice was steady, strong. "Then why are you sweating, Aunt Denise? Why did you just lock the door? Why are you looking at me like I'm a threat instead of your niece?" "Because you're making wild accusations based on lies from a desperate woman who's running out of time," Denise snapped. "Your mother is sick, Kennedy. She's dying, and she's trying to take me down with her out of spite." "No," Kennedy said quietly. "She's trying to save me because she knows you're about to do to me what you did to her. Frame me for your crimes. Let me go to prison while you walk away free, again." "That's ridiculous, is it?" Kennedy interrupted. "Then explain these documents, Aunt Denise. Explain why my signature is on transfer authorizations I never signed. Explain why money from my non-profit is going to shell corporations connected to your fraud case. Explain why you're so desperate to get me to sign more documents today." The silence stretched. Webb could hear Denise breathing, could almost feel her calculating, weighing her options. "You're wearing a wire," Denise said finally. "That's why you're pushing so hard. You're trying to get me to confess." "I don't need you to confess," Kennedy said. "I have all the evidence I need, but I wanted to give you a chance. A chance to do what you should have done 16 years ago. Tell the truth. Take responsibility. Stop destroying the people who love you." "Love?" Denise laughed bitterly. "Your mother didn't love me. She pitied me. She thought I was weak, that I couldn't handle prison. So she played the martyr, took my place, and spent 16 years making me feel guilty." "You should feel guilty," Kennedy said, her voice shaking with emotion. "You let your sister rot in prison for a crime she didn't commit. You built your entire life on her sacrifice. And now you're trying to do the same thing to me. Your niece. Family. Family," Denise repeated mockingly. "Family is what got me into this mess. Your mother's noble sacrifice, your grandmother's expectations. Everyone always wanting me to be perfect, to succeed, to make them proud. Well, I did succeed, and I'm not going to let you or your mother take that away from me." "So you admit it," Kennedy said. "You admit you let Mom take the blame. You admit you're trying to frame me now." "I admit nothing," Denise snapped. "And even if I did, it doesn't matter. You're a social worker with no legal training, no credibility, and a convicted felon for a mother. I'm a respected attorney with a spotless record and connections throughout the legal system. Who do you think they'll believe?" Webb saw Shanice's face crumple, saw her mouth the word no. But Kennedy wasn't done. "They'll believe the evidence," Kennedy said. "They'll believe the bank statements, the forged documents, the photos, the GPS data from your phone placing you at the scene 16 years ago. They'll believe my mother's testimony, corroborated by physical evidence you kept as insurance. And they'll believe this recording of you admitting you're trying to frame me." "You little—" Denise's voice rose, then cut off abruptly. "This conversation is over. Get out of my office." "I need to call my mother," Kennedy said clearly. "The signal." Webb grabbed his radio, but before he could call Rodriguez, they heard a crash through the wire, the sound of a struggle. Kennedy crying out. "Nobody's calling anyone!" Denise snarled. "Give me that wire, now!" Shanice was already moving, throwing open the van door despite her restraints. Webb grabbed her, but she fought him with desperate strength. "That's my daughter!" She's hurting my daughter. Webb made a split-second decision. He unlocked Shanice's restraints completely. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. They ran toward the building, Sarah already ahead of them, phone to her ear calling for backup. Webb's badge got them past security, into the elevator, up to the 15th floor. Rodriguez met them in the hallway, weapon drawn. She didn't give the signal, Rodriguez said. I was waiting. She gave it, Webb interrupted. Then Denise attacked her. Move. Niddle. They burst through Denise's office door to find Kennedy on the floor, blood streaming from her nose, the wire torn from her blouse. Denise stood over her, holding a letter opener, her professional composure completely shattered. Stay back, Denise screamed. All of you, stay back. But she hadn't counted on Shanice. Hadn't counted on a mother's desperation, a mother's love, a mother's 16 years of rage, finally finding a target. Shanice crossed the room in 3 strides and punched her sister square in the face.